Hi everyone, I hope all is going well. My name is Shuaib Shamsi and we're going to be talking about computational methods for analyzing star formation in spiral galaxies, which is my thesis. And the basic structure of how it's going to go is basically we're going to be talking about computation in astronomy, galaxies and star formation in general, basically as a prelude to the methods where we'll discuss the datasets that we're using and some of the caveats for that dataset usage, and then we'll jump onto the results that we have for our research. So first, computation. So it's no surprise that as synchronous developed over the past few decades, it has become a larger part of astronomy where there's all this information coming on that we have to collect, organize, and analyze to make sense out of the cosmos. And one other thing that computation has enabled astronomy to do is to create large-scale all-sky surveys, including the SDSS survey that we will be talking about later. Here is an image of the ESO observatory. So spiral galaxies. So galaxies are collections of stars, dust, gases, baryonic matter in general, and dark matter collected together and forming a structure in our universe. They come in all shapes and sizes, and we'll be learning more about them later on. And one of the more important features we can learn about a galaxy is its morphology, or the features inside it. So over here we have an example where we can see the spiral arms of this galaxy. We have a galactic center which is quite bright in the middle, and we have a bar which is quite straight and going through the center. The spiral arms are then connected towards the bar. And morphologies are really important because they form the basis of how we classify galaxies even today. Here's Edwin Hubble's classic tuning fork diagram where galaxies are divided into ellipticals and spirals of different kinds, with bars and no bars present. And spiral galaxies are a kind of disk galaxy with these spiral structures made up of baryonic matter winding around the center of the galaxy and forming the shape of a arm. Around two-thirds of all galaxies have some sort of spiral structure as determined by Galaxy Zoo. And our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is an example of a spiral galaxy with around 250 billion stars, one of which is our Sun. Next, we're going to talk about star formation rate, which is just the measure at which new stars are formed inside a galaxy. It is measured in units of solar masses per year. And there are many ways to ascertain the star formation rate of a region, but for our purposes, we'll just use the H alpha emission flux. This is the emission line at 6564 angstroms. And as Connecticut 1998 documents, it can signify that there are young hot new stars, which signifies rare star formation. So why did we just learn all of this? So why do we care about this so much? We care because spiral galaxies are really beautiful. They're dynamic and they're full of life, and they evolve in amazing ways. But obviously, relative to us as human beings, they are pretty much eternal because they evolve on such long timestamps. And we can't just figure out their evolution and their how they're formed just by looking at them. And of course, to figure out their evolution and how they're formed is to figure out the underlying physics of spiral galaxies themselves. So, for instance, in the astronomical community, um, two different ways of thinking about how spiral galaxies evolve are the material arms theory and the density wave theory. These are two different ways we think about how spiral arms and spiral galaxies evolve and exist. And of course, to figure out how spiral arms behave in spiral galaxies, we can figure out how to model them more accurately. Many clues of galaxy formation lay hidden in the fine details of a galaxy structure, as Peng et al. 2002 very eloquently puts it. So first we're going to be talking about the density wave theory. And the density wave theory basically suggests that throughout the disk of the spiral galaxy, there exists a density wave that permeates through the disk. And as it permeates, it creates regions of density where stellar material which would enable stellar formation is pressed together and in a shock, and that is basically what triggers star formation and enables greater star formation to occur. The material arms theory then suggests that spiral structures which are optically visible are just as a result of an overdensity of baryonic matter, and it's the overdensity that invites greater star formation happening inside the spiral arm, and there's no specific triggering that the spiral structure actually does. And so there's been a rich history of conversation in the astronomical community where people are trying to figure out what theory or what combination of the theories fits observation the best. So we have Elmgreen and Elmgreen in 1983 who searched for the difference in blueness of in the spiral arms and the non-spiral regions or the interarm regions in 35 galaxies. And they did this because a density wave theory would suggest that as the density wave progresses, there is going to be more star formation occurring in one part of the wave than the other, and more star formation rate corresponds to newer stars and hence bluer stars. And they did not find any significant correlation with arm strength of blueness with arm strength. We have also Foyle et al. 2010, and this paper looked at 3 galaxies, 2 spiral grand design galaxies and 1 flocculent galaxy, which is another way of saying that there are multiple instances of weaker spiral arms, but many numerous spiral arms throughout the disk of the galaxy. And they found out that the interarm regions of these spiral galaxies are home to significant star formation, and this is something that we corroborate later on. We also have Kim et al. 2020, and this is a different approach where the team used 3D simulations to find that 90% of star formation does occur within spiral arms, but the global star formation does not significantly correlate to spiral arms themselves. Foyle et al. Interestingly also noted a shortage of research on the differences in star formation in spiral arms versus the interarm region, and and many queries into the different star formation in interarm regions either have historically included a very small sample of galaxies, or they are achieved through simulations such as in Kim et al. 2020. And thus this leaves a large space and a really potential utility of asking these questions with large-scale all-sky surveys. So we're jumping onto the methods. So first we're talking about the SDSS MaNGA survey. So SDSS is the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. It is one of the largest astronomical surveys to date. SDSS just concluded its generation 4 and it is now on its way to start generation 5. And it is extensive. It has color images of 1/3 of the night sky, and it has spectra for more than 3 million astronomical objects. And of course, in Sunspot, New Mexico, resides the 2.5-meter Apache Point Observatory telescope. This telescope is the telescope used to make MaNGA observations. MaNGA is a subsurvey within SDSS, and it stands for Mapping Nearby Galaxies at Apache Point Observatory, and it does precisely the same thing. It maps nearby galaxies at Apache Point Observatory. With MaNGA, we're able to observe the spectral and spatial images of 10,000 local galaxies, and we can use that for many science purposes. This video over here is produced by John Kiparenko and Dan Long in 2014 from the SDSS collaboration, and it recounts a night of observation with the SDSS telescope. It is a beautiful video. You should check it out on YouTube. Yeah, so this was the MaNGA survey, and we're going to be delving into how MaNGA makes observations a little bit more in detail. So MaNGA not only makes spectral measurements, but also spatial measurements of a particular galaxy, and this is because MaNGA is a integral field unit survey, or an IFU survey. It accomplishes this by arranging fibers that can observe a particular part of the galaxy into a hexagonal shape, and this hexagonal shape is then can then be plugged into a MaNGA plate, which can correspond to different areas of the night sky where different galaxies can be observed. And as we know, different galaxies in the night sky occupy a different radial area across the night sky. So fiber bundles come in different sizes, all the way from 127 fiber bundles to 7 fiber bundles, and this can be adjusted according to how big our galaxies are. So how MaNGA basically works is one of the 10,000 target galaxies are observed, and once the telescope is pointing towards it, that galaxy can be observed with the bundle directly pointing towards it. And each fiber then makes an observation on that particular spatial area. So with this, MaNGA is able to come up with a lot of data products for scientists to use to answer any number of science questions, including the data reduction pipeline, or DRP data cube. The data cube is a three-dimensional cube as shown on the image at the right, where two of the dimensions are spatial, showing the face of the galaxy, and one dimensional is spectral, showing the values and fluxes from each different wavelength. And and after data has been processed through the data reduction pipeline, it then goes to the data analysis pipeline. The data analysis pipeline produces additional products, and one of those products is the emission maps that it produces. Emission maps are just two-dimensional images of the galaxy in a particular wavelength, and these wavelengths are at many times associated with something that tells us something interesting about the galaxy. For example, for our purposes, we use the H-alpha emission map, which gives us the image of the galaxy in question in the H-alpha flux of the galaxy. And as discussed previously, H-alpha tells us about the star formation inside a galaxy, and thus can be used to ascertain what star formation is happening in what spatial coordinate of the galaxy. Now we're going to be talking about Galaxies of 3D. So Galaxies of 3D is part of the Zooniverse group of projects. These are projects which are powered by citizen science. The idea is that a lot of data in the scientific community can be processed better by humans rather than machines. And galaxies are included in that because they can be significant challenges in having a computer learn what part of galaxy is what feature. So Galaxies of 3D was formed and released in 2017. It asked for each galaxy 15 different volunteers different questions about the galactic center, the foreground stars, the galactic bars, and the spiral arms of said galaxy. And with this information combined, we were able to achieve count maps for different galaxies. And count maps basically show parts of the galaxy where different amount of people, from 0 people to 15 people, have identified different galactic features. So over here in the example, we have a sample galaxy, the optical image on the left side, and in the center we have the count image, where it's just populated, it just traces perfectly the galaxy's morphology just by plotting how many people have identified a particular part as a particular morphological feature. And then this count map can be used to identify different areas as shown in the rightmost image, where we can identify what morphological feature belongs where. Special classifications. So once we have these count maps, the question we must ask is, what threshold do we use to identify what pixel is a spiral arm or what pixel is not a spiral arm? We have 0 to 15 volunteers classifying each pixel as a spiral or non-interarm region, and selecting either extreme would yield not very good results. So for this, over here we can see in each row we have a different galaxy with 1 to 7 people classifying regions in them as spirals or non-spirals. And we can see as we progress from left to right, from 1 person to 7 people, the area changes drastically, which is considered a spiral arm. And a visual inspection leads us to believe that a threshold of about 3 people identifying a pixel as a spiral arm or a non-spiral arm seems to work best. Once we have this information at the ready, we're able to combine SDSS MaNGA emission maps and Galaxies with 3D count maps to produce emission maps where we can identify what regions belong to spiral arms and what do not. Over here we have the example of an optical image, the optical image of the galaxies representation in the H alpha emission map, and then the spiral region of the H alpha emission map removed. So once we have that defined, we can go on to view our sample. From the 10,000 MaNGA galaxies, we select 835 galaxies with clearly defined spirals, and we put these galaxies onto the overall MaNGA sample of 10,000 galaxies. Over here, we overlay our sample here in green over the 10,000 MaNGA galaxies in blue, both in the redshift z versus stellar mass space, and the absolute magnitude g minus r versus I space. The results. So first off, we can look at the total star formation rate histogram for our sample. We look at the percentage of star formation rate from the total global star formation rate happening inside spiral arms, and we plotted to see that around 57% of star formation occurs within spiral arm, which definitely corroborates Elmgreen and Elmgreen 1986's findings that there is significant star formation occurring in the interarm regions as well. However, we do know that there's a lot more area in a galaxy where spiral arms reside than where interarm regions are, and so it would make sense that there would be a lot more star formation rate occurring within those interarm regions. For this, we then calculate the average SFR within those spiral regions and interarm regions. We find that the proportion spiral star formation rate minus non-spiral star formation rate divided by non-spiral star formation rate yields an average of about 0.5, which says that around 50% more star formation occurs in spiral arms rather than non-spiral regions. To get a better idea of the proportions in our sample, we also plot a histogram of the total percentage of star formation occurring inside spiral arms divided by the percentage of spiral identified spaxels in our galaxies. And when we plot this histogram, we find that on average there's about 3 times more proportion of star formation occurring in spiral arms than percentage of spiral spaxels. And finally, we have this radial plot. We calculate the star formation rate proportion, which is this SFR in spiral arms minus SFR in non-spiral arms divided by SFR in non-spiral arms. And we take this proportion and we plot it against the effective radius for all of our galaxies. And this is a combination of that. The effective radius is simply the radius of the proportional radius of galaxies within which 50% of optic emissions are contained. And we can see that as we move radially outward from the galaxy, we move from about 0.1 effective radius to 1.5 effective radii. There is a significant increase in the proportional star formation rate. Now, this may suggest that there is some density wave behavior over here, because if it was simply a material arm model, we would expect the proportion of star formation rate to be fairly constant throughout the spiral arms as we move radially outwards. So for future work, there's a lot more work to be done. One of the things that we want to investigate is the star formation efficiency of our galaxies. So the star formation efficiency is simply the star formation rate divided by the molecular mass in the particular region of the galaxy. This makes sure we can investigate any enhancement in star formation regardless of there being an overdensity in a particular region of a galaxy. So that's something we want to check out, especially it's been noted by Foyle et al. 2010. Another technical improvement that we would like to make is because our different measures of our entire sample range from a wide variety of values. So it's best mapped or modeled with a Gaussian function to find averages, and we want to make that Gaussian function average mapper for our galaxy to find out better statistics. And finally, we'd also like to investigate correlations between star formation rates and star formation efficiencies and the mass of galaxies. Onto acknowledgements. Thank you so much for Professor Karen Masters for her constant guidance and encouragement. And thank you to the SDSS collaboration, especially work by Coleman Krozek on Galaxies with 3D. Their data and their work has been immensely helpful for this thesis. And that's it. Thank you.